Hi everyone, it's Laura from Three Kittens Needle Arts, and I'm going to show you today how to do a tubular bind off for a 1x1 ribbing. Tubular bind off is great for a couple of purposes. One is if you want your 1x1 ribbing bind off to be stretchy. Sometimes with a regular bind off, especially in ribbing, it seems really tight, and so tubular bind off is a way to avoid that. The other time that it's really nice is if you're doing something like a cowl where you have a tubular cast on, but the tubular bind off mimics that cast on. So I'm going to show you today how to do the tubular bind off. So first I just have to thread my yarn onto my needle. And there are a couple of setup things first, and then it will just be the same thing over and over and over again. So for your first stitch, you're going to want to insert your tapestry needle as if to purl into the stitch and pull it through. And then for your second stitch on your needle, what you want to do is you want to insert your needle and then insert it through your stitch as if to knit. That can be kind of hard, especially if you have finer weight yarn than what I'm using here. So what I like to do is I like to insert it between the two needles, between the two stitches underneath the needle, and just pull it all the way through. And then insert the stitch as if to knit, going all the way to the back of the needle, and pull that through. And those are your first two steps. And then everything after this is just going to be repeated. So the next one, you're going to go back to the first stitch and insert as if to knit and pull it through. And pull that stitch off the needle. Then you're going to go into the second stitch on the hook, on the needle, and insert as if to purl. You're going to go to the first stitch on your needle and insert as if to purl and pull it all the way through. And then take that stitch off. Then you're going to go to the second stitch on the needle and do that insert as if to knit. Again, I bring my yarn in between the two stitches and pull it all the way through, and then insert as if to knit and pull through. And then you're going to insert as if to knit into the first stitch and pull it through. And take that stitch off the needle. And if you have noticed at all, you're always doing knit, knit, purl, purl. So I just did 2 insert as if to knit. Now I'm doing 2 insert as if to purl. So you go to the second stitch on the needle, insert as if to purl, and then the first stitch on the needle and insert as if to purl, and pull it through. And it looks like I've gotten it a little loosey-goosey here, so I'm just going to tighten it up by following the path and pulling. All right, so now I've got to do my knit, knit, 2. So you always go into the second stitch on the hook first, on the needle first, and pull it through. Insert it as if to knit. Then on the first stitch, insert as if to knit. going to pull it off first so I can tighten it better. There we go. Now purl into the second stitch. Purl into the first stitch. I went ahead and just slipped that stitch off. Now we're back to the knit into the second stitch. Knit into the second stitch. Purl into the, sorry, that was knit into the first stitch. Purl into the second stitch. Purl into the first stitch. And take the stitch off. Then we're knitting into the second stitch. Knit into the first stitch and pull it off. And then we've only got one stitch left, so you've already knit into that one, so you just are going to purl into that one to finish it off. And there you go, a nice stretchy bind off. And that is how you do a tubular bind off on a 1x1 rib.